Back to this new channel called Vuplexing the NBA. If you're from my main channel Vuplexington, then W's. But we're reacting to huge changes are coming to the Boston Celtics by Flight Mike. Let's go.
Celtics star Jason Tatum has officially been diagnosed with torn Achilles.
Yeah.
With or without Jason Tatum's injury, I'm told the Celtics were going to look into roster changes this upcoming offseason, and this injury only opens up even more potential possibilities.
The worst possible thing just happened to the Boston Celtics.
True.
Late in an already grueling Game 4 against the New York Knicks, Jason Tatum will go down with what appeared to be a right ankle injury at the time. But the news was much worse than we expected. It was confirmed that Jason Tatum ruptured his Achilles, and now not only is he out for the rest of this year's playoffs, but he could also potentially be out for the entirety of the 2025-26 season as well.
That's tough. The entirety of next season's. Ooh, that's tough.
Well, that's not the only problem though. Under the surface, this injury could affect the Boston Celtics franchise forever. So before we get to the content, make sure you check out our latest video on Uni Diamond Talk, our baseball channel. And now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro.
Cue the intro.
Last year, the Boston... Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Jason Tatum tearing his Achilles tendon might genuinely create a butterfly effect that could potentially shake up the NBA for good. Last year, the Boston Celtics finally won the championship that they've been competing for since Jason Tatum was drafted almost a decade ago. And it really did seem like a new dynasty.
Oh, that's nasty.
But that dynasty very well may have just ended before it even had the chance to begin. The future of the Boston Celtics is a complete mystery, and let me tell you why. For starters, there's a very good chance that the roster we see when Jason Tatum steps foot back on the court isn't even close to the roster we've seen over the past 2 years. If Jason...
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder when he will come back from injury and like what the roster is gonna look like. That's crazy. Can't wait to see.
Next year and comes back at the beginning of the 2026-27 season, he will have played his last game with both Kristaps Porzingis, Luke Kornet, and Al Horford. Porzingis and Kornet will both be unrestricted free agents by then, and so will Al Horford. But there's a very, very high chance that he retires after this season. And seeing his career go out the way it is this playoffs is a shame. There's also no guarantee that Drew Holiday will still be around by then, despite him being under contract with a player option until 2028. Drew is already 34 years old, which would make him 36 by the start of the 2026-27 season. And even if he doesn't retire, he's making so much money, and there's a high chance of him being traded as a salary dump. That's if one, he starts to decline as a player, and two, the Boston Celtics are just not a good team next year, which are both very realistic options after this injury to Jason Tatum.
And it might have been the last game he played with Drew Holiday, and I think that they will just hang on to Jaylen Brown. And by the way, I'm not saying all of these guys, what I'm saying...
Yeah, they're going to have to use Jaylen. Yo, Jaylen Brown's about to carry that team for a long time. Holy...
Going to be a totally different team.
Nick Wright said it. By the time Jason Tatum gets back, the Boston Celtics are going to be almost unrecognizable. I mean, Boston is going to be in salary cap hell next season. Through this season, Jason Tatum has been playing on a max contract that he signed fresh off of his rookie contract in 2020. And he's been making around $30 million per year on this backloaded deal, with this year being worth $34.8 million to be exact. However, this contract is up at the end of the season, and his brand new contract, a super max contract that he signed in 2024 that's worth a hell of a lot more than his rookie max, kicks in at the start of next season. That means that the Boston Celtics will be paying Jason Tatum $54 million to not play for them next season.
Bro, the Boston Celtics are cooked. They're paying this dude $54 million, and he's gonna be sitting at home watching the games on TV. That is crazy.
One of the biggest reasons that the Celtics have been able to build the roster that they have is the fact that they've been only paying Jason Tatum $30 million in the middle of his prime. Now that the cap hit increases by $20+ million, who knows what direction the team plans on going in. This contract gets much worse for the Boston Celtics every year compared to his rookie max contract. His rookie max started at $28 million and only increased by $2 million every year. His new supermax contract, however, sits at $54 million.
Bro, they're gonna be wishing they never paid him this, bro. Bro, they're gonna be wishing that they never paid him this.
increases by a whopping $4.3 million.
Because again, you have to think he might not even be the same player after this injury. His numbers might drop very significantly when he gets back. Like, we don't know how much this injury is going to affect him.
Every year. This means that in 2029, the Celtics will be paying a 31-year-old Jason Tatum $71 million if he takes his player option, which honestly, depending on the type of player he is at that point, he most probably will opt into that player option. Who in their right mind would turn down that kind of money?
True. If I was him, and I would take that $31 million deal, bro.
Boston Celtics cap situation has
71.
been heavily carried by Jason Tatum's rookie max contract, but that's gone now. And so's the depth that got them so far just 1 year ago.
Yeah.
Jaylen Brown is on a max contract of his own and is making $50+ million per year starting next year. Drew Holiday will be making $66 million over the next 2 seasons. And even if he gets traded, Boston would need a salary piece back just to make the cap work. So they couldn't even get rid of that cap hit if they wanted to. Derek White is about to start the same contract that Jason Tatum signed in 2020, but
Derek White's about to get paid
next year. And that doesn't end until 2029 when he's 35 years old. Kristaps Porzingis will still be making $30 million next year, and they're even paying Sam Hauser, of all people, $10 million a year over the next 4 years. The only good thing Boston has going for their salary cap future at this point is the fact that they were able to sign
Bro, they're barely gonna have signed they're cooked. They're never gonna sign. They're probably not even gonna have enough cap space to sign no one, bro.
Pritchard to an absolute bargain of a contract before he broke out as the NBA Sixth Man of the Year. They still have their main guys for next year outside of Al Horford, but there's one massive problem with that. They won't have Jason Tatum. The Boston Celtics
they're not gonna recover from this.
Middle of the pack team next year without Tatum. And with the way their roster is constructed and the payroll each of their guys has, they can't even go out and try to improve their roster to give Jaylen Brown a chance as the leader of that team. The Boston Celtics currently are screwed. And because of that, there's a good chance that Boston could push his recovery in the next year.
Well, if he's ahead of schedule and he's ready to go, and he could get like 10 games in before the postseason, maybe it's a conversation you have.
Once we hit the late February, early March range of next season, the Celtics are going to have a very important decision to make. A decision that could affect the foreseeable future of basketball in Boston. Boston is going to have to decide whether or not Jason Tatum can play late in the season and even in the playoffs. And it's not as easy of a decision as you may think. Yes, Jason.
Exactly, because you don't even know if they're going to make the playoffs next season, which they probably are, but we don't even know.
Tatum can come back and potentially give you the superstar production that you lacked all season. But more than likely, that won't happen in the 2026 season, even if he were to come back. What would be a more likely outcome if Boston decides to rush Jason Tatum back is that he would return, his injury would still linger, and he could potentially never be the same player again.
True.
Cannot be too careful with injuries in the NBA, especially not Achilles injuries.
True.
And there's a very good chance that Boston plays with fire with this one. I'll tell you a little story. In the late 90s, when Michael Jordan was still running the NBA, there was a new guy on the scene who seemed to be the next superstar in the NBA. That man was Grant Hill. With the Detroit Pistons to start his career, he would win a Rookie of the Year award, finish with MVP votes every season, and he was on an All-NBA team every single year up until the year 2000.
Yeah, I know what this story's about.
And Grant Hill would suffer an ankle injury that would require surgery at the age of 27. Hill would get surgery and then look to come back and be better than ever, but for some reason that would never happen. For 3 straight years, Grant Hill would try to fight through this ankle injury and undergo numerous surgeries on it until he would end up even missing the entire 2003 to 2004 season. Hill would finally come back somewhat healthy in 2004 after 4 years of his nagging injury, but he was never the same player again. This is exactly what could happen to Jason Tatum if the Boston Celtics aren't careful. Tatum is the same age now as Grant Hill was when he first suffered that ankle injury. And with the amount of money that they're paying him over the next 5 years, Boston better watch his rehab like a hawk. And make sure that he is truly 100%.
Bro, that would be crazy if Jason Tatum's the next Grant Hill. But I hope not, bro. I hope not.
Ready to go before they put him back on the court, because you'll see just how much Boston will miss Jason Tatum next season, and they can't afford to ruin his career.
For me, I feel like it might be over. after this year for the dynasty of the Celtics.
Now, despite this entire video being negative so far, there's some good news with this injury.
Ooh.
The leg in which Jason Tatum tore his Achilles is his right leg. I know that doesn't matter much on the surface, but if you pay close enough attention, it actually matters a lot. A torn Achilles prevents a lot of things, but whenever people come back from this injury, the only thing that really significantly changes about their game is their ability to run and jump. However, luckily for Jason Tatum, whenever he goes up for a finish, he typically jumps off of his left leg the majority of the time. And that's the same thing that happened with Kevin Durant. He tore his right Achilles in 2019, missed a ton of time, and when he came back, he was still Kevin Durant because Kevin Durant jumps off of his left foot. If Jason Tatum can come back and be Jason Tatum...
True. Okay. Yeah, that is true. That's true.
That would be absolutely huge for the Boston Celtics. But like I said, Boston can't rush this because even if Jason Tatum does come back at 100%, there's already a guaranteed loss for the Boston Celtics. Before Kevin Durant got hurt, he never missed more than 20 games in a year outside of one injury-riddled season where he missed 55. And the majority of those missed games later in that tenure were because Golden State was the best team we've ever seen, and they were able to load manage a ton. After the injury, however, Kevin Durant has missed 20 or more games in every single season since. Despite Kevin Durant playing great basketball since his injury, he hasn't been playing as much. Jason Tatum could come back at 100%, but you won't be getting 100% of Jason Tatum like you have been in the past. Tatum has never had a real injury in his career.
Yeah.
He's played the most minutes since being drafted by far. Boston is going to have to get used to playing without Tatum leading the way, not only for the entirety of next season, but for around 20% of the rest of his career at best. In many ways, this injury will change the Boston Celtics forever. I pray Jason Tatum has a speedy recovery, and I truly hope that Boston doesn't rush him back and ruin his career.
True.
He truly is one of the best players of this generation.
Bro.
It would be a shame if we saw Jason Tatum decline, but unfortunately, it's very possible that we've not only seen the end of prime Jason Tatum, but we've also potentially seen the end of this era's Boston Celtics.
Ooh. That is a crazy... That's crazy. That is... Yeah, that is, that's crazy. Hopefully, he can be a speedy recovery. Hopefully, he can be as healthy as he once was and still be the Jason Tatum we all know and love. Anyway, that's all I have for guys today. Anyway, bye.